Thank you. Um, okay, I am Fran Beallor, and so Eileen asked us a question, which was, how has our commitment to climate issues informed our art practice and our lives? And for me, when I think about this question, it's a little bit of a chicken or the egg kind of question of which came first. So I was very concerned about the environment from an early age, but it wasn't until my own personal artistic focus started to turn in that direction, almost without my realizing it. It was like in hindsight, but isn't that often how it is? We do some art and we're not 100% sure what the heck we're doing, and then we realize what we're doing. And so I think it's funny how our art informs us as much as we inform the art, or even the world informs the art. It's kind of a give and take there. So I had been really growing more and more concerned about the environment. And since I started doing some of my own environmentally themed work, I really began to want to share that work and to show the work. And there are some wonderful climate shows out there, including ones curated by our own Marcia Annenberg, who will be speaking soon, and who was in the show. Um, so this all led me to want to not just do the work and show the work, but also to curate other artists' climate work, because as I started getting more involved in the whole area, I started looking around and seeing more and more artists who've really devoted themselves in so many ways to this cause, which is so important. So these exhibits at Hudson Guild were my first in-person curation. And I have to say that doing two shows at once was challenging. So anyone interested in curating, I encourage you to think twice before you decide to do two shows at once. However, two of the artists, so three artists who are in the shows will be speaking, and two of them are in Our Fragile Moment. And I think the title of the show alone is very telling, and we'll show a few slides from that show so you can get an idea of how it looks. Right central there is the work of Nicole Cooper, who will be speaking. So with this show, with Our Fragile Moment, yeah, so this is when you enter the gallery. This is pretty much what you see. And this gallery is a little bigger of the two, and I was trying to include a lot of themes about climate. And you can go to the next slide now. Yeah. And trying to show different kinds of work, different modalities, diverse selection of voices, all to emphasize how important this topic is. So I just want to say that in conjunction with the shows, I've also been doing a lot of events, and so in the middle of my talk, I'm going to give a little plug for our next event, which is next Wednesday, the 9th of April, from 6 to 9 p.m. for any of you night owls who don't like to get up early. It's a good time to come. So we're doing hot climate art films, artists on environmental crisis. I really wanted to have digital and video media in the show, but I couldn't because of the space limitations. They didn't allow it. So I decided to do this event. And so I hope some of you can come out for that. Okay, and then the other show is called Water's Voice. So, you know, some of my own work on climate is on the theme of glaciers, and so I guess it's not surprising that I included several pieces of work that have to do with icebergs and glaciers in Water's voice. You can go to the next slide. Oh, this is a cool view. So one of the things I like about this gallery is that even though it's closed on weekends, which is a disadvantage, at night it's lit up even on the weekends and all the time. So anyone passing by can literally see the entire show from the street. It's like a little, I don't know, it's like an aquarium. And I actually curated the front of the gallery like an aquarium with a lot of sea creatures. So it's kind of got a fun aspect to it. And when you're dealing with a heavy theme like climate, it's nice to have a little lightness there too. So, the first art, are there more slides from Water's Voice? Oh, okay. So this is a view of the whole show. And the work in the back of the gallery that you see right in the center there is the work of another New York Artist Circle artist, Susan Knight, and she spoke a couple of months ago when she was here. But the first artist I'm going to introduce from the show is Eleanor Goldstein. And Eleanor has two wonderful works in the show. And one of the things I love about curating is getting to know the artists in the show and hearing them speak about their work.
Okay, thank you, darling.
So I pass the
Okay.
mic.
I'll tell you, she's a jewel. She really is a gift. Well, let me just read this very quickly from the New York Times. Enough as the planet warms up, sea ice hits a new low. The loss is, quote, enough to cover the entire United States east of the Mississippi. So it is not only the loss of the magnificence of the icebergs, it's the people and the birds and the insects and all of our earth is crying. And that's what drew me for years, the evolution of destruction and rebuilding, only this time it's the destruction of it. And that is what I do. I follow the icebergs. I've gone to the Arctic Circle 3 times, once alone, twice on very small fishing trawlers, so that one can touch the ice, feel it, listen to the silence. As the last time I spoke, let's have silence and hear how noisy it is here. There is no silence here, but at the Arctic Circle, you get true light, true darkness, true silence, and a connection to the art and to the beauty which is so fragile and yet stands so strong momentarily. Only 1/10 of the iceberg is above water. 90% of it is below. We are seeing only an echo of it. So that's what I run for. That's what I'm pursuing. I might even go back again. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, sweetie.
Thank you. Oh, don't you trip over this.
Nope, I'm going to do my dance.
All right, so Marcia Annenberg is another artist in the show, and she is working her way up here. One of the things that was really important to me in curating these shows was to exhibit work that was beautiful and aesthetically, compelling, because it's such a difficult topic. It's a heavy topic, and the beauty is uplifting. So, Marcia.
Thank you so much, Fran. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. Fran, if this was your first curatorial effort, you kind of hit it out of the ballpark. Both shows are extraordinary, A+. Could we go to my third image? It's kind of came in backwards. Yeah, before that. Oh, great, okay. So I wanted to talk about the journey of how climate influenced my artwork. And I think for all of us, Al Gore's film in 2006 was an eye-opener, Inconvenient Truth. But it was after that movie that I read a book, we're all talking about books today, by Bill McKibben, that really propelled my journey into climate art. It was called The End of Nature. If you don't know, I was going to bring a copy of it with me, but I'm carrying on today. The End of Nature, actually, it was written in 1989, and what he found is that the atmosphere and the oceans, we have changed the chemistry of the Earth. And because Bill McKibben wrote that book, then he later formed an organization called 350.org. There's a chapter in New York City called 350 NYC, which I became part of 10 years ago. They meet at Ethical Culture. It's a great group. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about the work in Fran's show, which is about deforestation. This work is about the scientist, Dr. James Hansen. I've been following him for a long time, and he was arrested in 2010 at the White House protesting Keystone XL, among other things. And I didn't see it in the newspapers. I saw his arrest on the internet. Someone had taken a picture of him in handcuffs. So when he was arrested again in 2013, because I follow media, that's kind of where my artwork lives, I was looking to see who would report his arrest, because Dr. James Hansen was the leading climate scientist of NASA. And what I found was nobody reported the arrest except for one newspaper, the Washington Post. So when you look at this artwork, it's called Early Wednesday Morning. It's really a takeoff on Hopper's Early Sunday Morning. And if you see the, which is like such a beautiful painting, early Sunday morning somewhere upstate with a barber pole and windows and the low houses. So I copied the idea of the verticality of Hopper's painting and but the point of it is that you're looking at news, but the news that you think should be there isn't really there. It's ironic because we should be reading about Dr. Hansen, but we're not. All these other papers, except for the Washington Post, don't report it. And you have to ask yourself, why wasn't it reported? And that's why, not to bore you, but there was a law passed in 1996 called the Telecommunications Act. Before that act was passed, there were 50 media companies in America. The point of the act was to increase competition, but what happened was it erased competition, and by 2000, there were only 6 media companies in America. And that really affected what news is being reported, and climate news is not being reported. Let's go to the next image. This is called Checkmate Foxy Moxie. It's actually about the Paris Climate Treaty, and everybody in the world reported the Paris Climate Treaty in 2015, except for one outlet. I bought the New York Post, which is owned by Murdoch, and I was flipping through the Post, hoping to see it on page 5 or 10 or 15. I found the article about the Paris Climate Treaty on page 33. Page 33. And what attracted me to the article was a photograph. I didn't put a detail up there, but it's on the bottom row and the top row. There are 3 swimsuit models. And the title of the article was Splash for the Planet. Now, you may not realize that the Post has the 5th largest circulation in America. So anyone buying the paper that day would not know about the Paris Climate Treaty because it was hidden on page 33. On the right side of the composition is a little stuffed kangaroo and surrounded by handcuffs. I believe Murdoch is really a criminal. I mean, his influence in America has been nothing but criminal because Fox News does not report on climate. Fox News has been the #1 media channel in America for 20 years. #1. And so if you wonder why did America elect a climate denier? Because 40% of America doesn't know there's a climate crisis. So I want to end with Yurt Mobile. A yurt comes from Central Asia. It's a mobile tent. And I was thinking about the fact that, we think in New York maybe we're safe from climate change, but we're not. Nobody's safe. With extreme rainfall, our sewers and our plumbing is not engaged for extreme rainfall. My daughter was stranded, was it 2 summers ago or 3 summers ago, on the subway. We live uptown near the Cloisters. 157th Street flooded. She got out of the train stopped, and she had to wade up the stairs and walk 30 blocks home. Think of Asheville, North Carolina. People were flooded 2,000 feet above sea level. Well, why was that? 15 inches of rain, 15, fell in 3 days, and the rivers overflowed. And a lot of artists in Asheville were terribly affected. So, the point is that this work is about the fact that, we don't know what the future holds. It's a portable tent. There's a solar panel on top. There's a child's doll there, and the little flashlights on the side refer to an artwork that Joseph Beuys did in 1969 called Sled. And his work was about survival. So in effect, it's a quotation from Joseph Beuys about how will we survive climate change. That's it. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, good. Okay, so next we have Nicole Cooper, and Nicole couldn't be here today, so we're happy she could be here on Zoom. All right.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I'm sick today. Otherwise, I'd be there with y'all. So my name's Nicole Cooper. I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey of how climate action found its way into my life. Art is actually just one part of it, so I'll talk a little less about the art and more about the journey. I actually grew up in rural Missouri next to a field in the woods, and my family kind of had like a waste not, want not mentality. And in my adult life, I achieved a painting degree, and I landed myself in the design and marketing field. It took a little while after school to come back to art making as my life sort of adjusted. But when it did, I focused on things I was very curious about. For me, it was our human relationship with biology and time. And so curiosity was really, really leading my pathway into this like change. I was reading a lot about evolution, anthropology, and I was fascinated with how our life is connected across generations, even millennia. And I'm not really going to dig into the art side of things. You can actually listen to my artist talk, the artist talk on art recording. I'll end up sharing that with you guys eventually here once it's posted. But I really dove into learning. It was through this like research that my awareness over how much humanity was impacting the earth, as well as the urgency of our climate crisis. And I really knew that I needed to devote much of my life to this, to mitigating these problems. And so my art evolved, but I also found ways to evolve how I approached my job and my lifestyle. And here's just a few things that I did. I remember this. I actually created my own action plan. I put a little blanket in my living room at the time, and I was living in St. Louis before I had moved to New York. And I'd dim the lights, and I'd have something a delicious beverage, and I set out some pieces of paper, and I started thinking about a couple of different things. Like it was like I kind of recognized that change doesn't really happen overnight, and it's rarely perfect. So I moved forward with this like imperfect plan, just filled with questions. What are the problems out there? So that was maybe one sheet. What am I good at? What are my skills? And then what am I curious about? And then how can I align my art practice, which was becoming very climate oriented, with my daily life? It was kind of like dream boarding. And here's some of the things that came out. Well, learning was one. I dove into research, like what needed to be done to mitigate climate. I don't quite have time to share resources today, but I can give you just a couple other things. And then community. I joined the Missouri Coalition for the Environment at the time. There were other climate orgs, Sunshine Movement for a little while. Anything that had like a local chapter, I joined just to create some dialogue. And then I led a climate circle through the All We Can Save project, which is, I've got it here actually. It's a guided book club that brings together stories and solutions of women working from different angles on climate. And it allowed for deeper dialogue on climate concerns because I'd really been feeling alone. And additionally, I started looking for jobs. I was working in marketing and my skills were very much in marketing, but I had this passion for climate. And so it took a little while, but it led me into, I started working with solar companies. And moving our grid from fossil fuel to clean energy is actually a huge climate priority. So I was able to use my skills to help mitigate climate. And I also engage with some resources like Project Drawdown is a really great place to learn about solutions and how they impact, because actually we have all the solutions today, and that has a very clear picture of what can be done. I led an eco-challenge team, which gamifies climate action over a month, which is also conveniently the amount of time that it takes for you to learn a habit. It would be like simple things like, how do you compost? And now I'm also a climate cafe facilitator, so I really sought these things out. And after I'd created my own plan, I actually found that the author of the All We Can Save project, Dr. Anne Elizabeth Johnson, had put together this climate wayfinding. I think she maybe does workshops on this, or she did at some point. And it's really just like, it's 3 circles. And hers, where mine focused more on curiosity, hers was what brings you joy in like a top circle. And then a circle of what are you good at? And then a circle of what needs doing. And you find those intersections. And what it really does is creates a unique pathway based on your motivations and interests. Because it's, I think like everyone can't do everything, but we can, everybody can do something. And so I think the last little piece of advice that I would have is just, leading with curiosity and love in your heart. Because there's a lot of feels and emotions you may have about climate that I think stop a lot of people. And I think that's the pathway forward. Learning, it's the only way you can understand how to move forward. And then also finding community, seeking it out, or also just talking with your own family and friends and having patience with that. Because it's very hard conversations, but I find that to be very important. And if anybody is interested in doing like a climate action plan workshop, let me know. I might be able to put something together if that's something you're even interested in. Thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, I will. I just want to say also, in addition to everything else that Nicole is doing with climate, and she really has aligned her whole life with this issue, she also leads climate cafes. I'm not 100% sure you mentioned that, but she led a climate cafe for the shows, and people have asked, well, what is a climate cafe? And it's literally you get together and you drink coffee or tea and discuss your feelings about the climate, because a lot of people who are very concerned feel very isolated about their concern because of what Marcia was talking about, because of the kind of media blackout on this issue, and especially now, given our current political situation. So we had this Climb Art Cafe, and we drank coffee and looked at art and talked about climate. And I didn't know what to expect, but it was fantastic. I can't recommend it more if you ever have an opportunity to join a climate cafe. One man in the room, though, he was a professor, a teacher, and he travels around the world. And he said, he just doesn't get it. He's been to so many other countries, and they're all concerned about climate. And then he comes home, and people say, "Oh, climate change? You think that's real?" So I think you can sense how we all feel about this very important topic. So I wonder if anyone has any questions for anyone who spoke. Yes, Barbara. I could repeat, okay, better if she comes up. Okay, here comes Barbara Lubliner.
So, Fran, this is a question for you, because, I finally got a chance to see the show. I had seen the water one, but finally the fragile. So my question is that there are so many artists in the artist circle who do work about natural materials, about nature, and that your focus on this show seemed to include conviction. In other words, two pieces of work by different artists might have a similar feel, but you chose the one where the artist had conviction about the climate. Now, is that true?
So mostly yes, mostly yes. So because I'm concerned about this issue, and because I have a curatorial bug in my bee in my bonnet, whatever, I'm always looking around for other artists who do similar work or focus on climate. I don't mean similar in the way it looks, but in the themes. So over time, I have definitely tried to focus more on artists who really devote themselves to the issue. And a lot of the artists in this show, it's like everything they do. It's their whole work. Like Susan Knight in the Waters Voice show, all of her work is about the topic of water. It's kind of amazing. Some of the artists do different things. They're working on climate and other social justice issues as well. But it's amazing how many artists, more and more, are devoting themselves, exclusively to the climate crisis. Personally, I think, given politics and everything is whatever, I think it's just the most important issue we face. I mean, it's our home, our planet, and if that goes bye-bye, then so do we. So I just can't think of anything more important, and that's one of the reasons I'm so thrilled to be able to get this message out through art. So to do something that I love and something I believe in, and to have that unified is amazing, and I think that's what attracts me to other artists who also really focus in on that issue solely. Yeah. Any other questions for anyone? Oh, thank you, Lori. Yes, I didn't this time, and I should. So the two shows are showing at the Hudson Guild Galleries. Hudson Guild is a Chelsea community center that's been around for over 100 years, and as Chelsea has turned into the art mecca that it is, so the Hudson Guild's arts program has also grown up with Chelsea, and what started as a kind of mediocre art program has turned into an exceptional art program. They have two beautifully, not so long ago, renovated gallery spaces in two of their buildings. One is on 20, so this one, our Fragile Moment, at 441 West 26th Street between 9th and 10th Avenue, and that's in Guild Gallery 1. And if you do go to see it, don't be surprised that you have to go off the street through a path to get to the building. A lot of people walk around and can't figure out where it is, but it's there, I promise. And then a mere 10 blocks away on 9th Avenue between 17th and 18th Streets, is Guild Gallery 2, which is a tiny jewel box of a gallery. That's the one with the window on the street that you can see right in. So each gallery, by the way, has its advantages and disadvantages. So Waters Voice is not open on weekends generally, although it can be if anyone wants to come and make an appointment. The show is running through Earth Day, which is April 22nd. And we will have a closing event in the late afternoon on that day at 3 o'clock, starting at Waters Voice. And then some of the artists, I hope, will come and we'll talk about the work. And then we'll walk together over to Our Fragile Moment and look at that show as well and say goodbye, because then they close the next day. As I mentioned, we're doing the Hot Climate Art Films event next Wednesday. That's at the Our Fragile Moment Gallery, Hudson Guild on 26th Street. And there'll be one other event too, the Unfixing Workshop, which will be a little bit like Climate Cafe. It's to talk about feelings about the health of our planet and your own health, physical, mental, whatever. led by Nicole Betancourt. And I'll be sending out more notices to the listserv and everything and post that. I think that's it. Any other questions or thoughts or whatever? No. It's okay. Yes. Oh, thank you. So actually, this is something I gave a lot of thought about as a curator, whether to put my own work into the show. And in the end, I felt it was very important to put my work in because I think it gives a context to why I decided to curate these shows and why this issue is so important to me. And the work that I put in the show is from my Portraits of Glaciers series. They are very petite drawings, and that was a purposeful, an accidental and purposeful thing. So I started on a small scale, but I really liked the idea of showing something monumental in a very tiny space. It's kind of like the same thing as Georgia O'Keeffe talked about when she made her huge flowers, and she wanted people to stop and look at something so small as a flower and see it blown up. So I want people to have to step forward and really look at my work and think about what it is. The work looks a little abstract because my glaciers are done from an aerial perspective, so they're fractal and they look like veins or rivers or roads, and you have to really think about it. But I think that echoes the idea of the climate crisis, which is a little abstract. Here we are sitting in a nice warm room on a lovely rainy day, and it's like you don't necessarily know that climate is in danger around us because we're just going about living our lives. So it's very abstract. But if you just step in a little closer, then you really see what's going on. I've also have a series of works that deal with what I call ugly fruits, so imperfect fruits and vegetables that tend to be thrown out. I have work that is, I've done still lives of landfill trash, and works on newspaper. So all these have run through my career. That's what I do. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.